Trump cannot figure out why his base is so obsessed with this Epstein stuff and why it just won't go away. Meanwhile, it's becoming a problem for the Republican Party. Meanwhile, Trump is trying to move on one professional attack, one crazy social media post, one totally unfounded revenge prosecution at a time. We'll learn why the head of FEMA's emergency response has resigned. We'll check in on tariffs again, and we'll talk to Congressman Derek Tran of California. Welcome back to the podcast for the 54% of Americans who regularly vote for progress in every election and want to convince their friends and family members to join our majority. This is Majority 54.
Well, at the end of last week, Jason, the Wall Street Journal dropped a story in which they alleged that Trump wrote a, as they call it, body letter to Epstein in 2003 for Epstein's 50th birthday. This was a typewritten letter arranged inside a sketch of a nude woman's silhouette with a signature of Trump where the pubic hair would have been. And it had some cryptic references, including happy birthday, and may every day be another wonderful secret. This feels like it's written to just poke the conspiracy theorists out there. It couldn't be written more on the line of intrigue here.
I like Trump's response. Like, these are not my words, not the way I talk. Also, I don't draw pictures.
Well, I'll read you something. This is from Isaac Saul from Tangle. He wrote, Trump has a well-documented history of drawing. This may seem kind of silly, but a key part of Trump's and his surrogate's denial is that he's never someone who would write a note, including some kind of doodle. Donald Trump Jr., for instance, said, in 47 years, I've never seen him doodle once. Give me a break with the fake journalisming. That's his made-up word. Mm-hmm. Yet I can easily find, this is Isaac now talking again, I can easily find example after example of signed Trump drawings. You don't have to take my word for it. In his own book, published in 2008, Trump wrote about drawing for charity. I think he auctioned off some of his doodles as well. So doesn't check out. I know it's shocking, but his denial doesn't check out, Jason.
Yeah. I don't know, man. I mean, also, it's just a creepy little thing. Like, if you actually read it, it's cringy, as the kids say, but it's just sort of the way two dirtbags would talk to each other is basically what it is. I mean, and also, like, okay, let's assume for a minute, because I think it is real. What other secrets would these two dudes have? It's not about cheating at golf, you know?
Well, he is suing the Wall Street Journal over this, which is Murdoch-owned publication. So he's now saying that Murdoch is biased against him. And they also moved to unseal grand jury testimony in federal court. And I think this is an attempt to satisfy his base. And it seems like, if we're being honest, like certain members of his base are ready to move on. It seems like Speaker Johnson, and we have a member of Congress we can ask about this, essentially wants to shut down Congress so they don't have to vote on Epstein. And if we take Trump out of this, I don't think it's a good idea to be unsealing grand jury testimony generally, which we could talk about. But our audience may need some explaining on that. And perhaps you can enlighten us, since you've spent more time in the courtroom than I have.
Well, I've done almost no criminal work, but the reason that you don't want to just unseal grand jury testimony all the time is that the rules of evidence don't apply in grand jury testimony. I mean, the whole idea of a grand jury is that you get in there and you're just trying to meet the most minimum possible threshold. And so, there's nobody there to object. There's not a judge there at the time to say, well, you can't say that can't be admitted. It's just basically anybody can come in and say whatever they want. And it's purposefully done that way because it doesn't result in a conviction. It simply results in, okay, we are allowed to charge this person with a crime. There's enough here to say, probable cause. That's why you wouldn't usually release grand jury testimony, because it's going to read like courtroom testimony. But it's not really.
Yeah, and we got to imagine that the reason why they're moving to release this testimony is they know that Trump is not in it, and this was a narrow request. It doesn't include the Acosta deal that he made with Epstein or anything else that could be in this file that Trump is concerned about. So, by very definition, if he's looking to put it out there, it's probably
Well, think about what
yeah.
the prosecutor was trying to elicit from witnesses in front of a grand jury when their purpose was to get an indictment of Jeffrey Epstein. The I'm sure their questions and their prep of the witnesses were 100% about Jeffrey Epstein and no one else. Because if it brings anybody else in, then it's a headache for the prosecutor anyway. If your job is to come in and get an indictment of Jeffrey Epstein, you're asking your witnesses to only answer questions with regard to Jeffrey Epstein and no one else. And that's why they have no problem releasing grand jury testimony about Epstein.
Soon to be retired Republican Senator Tillis was asked about this. Let's hear what he had to say.
Release the damn files. Look, it makes no sense to me. If one of two things is true, I believe. Either it's a nothing burger in terms of the evidence we have. Let's separate it from this guy being disgusting and what he did and the systematic trafficking of young people, minor age people for sex purposes. But the promise to release the files during the campaign was either overplayed and we got a nothing burger if the files get released, or it's something really disturbing, and that's actually even a more compelling reason to release it. And this nonsense of, well, we've got to protect the innocent witnesses, those sorts of things, that's called redaction. We do that all the time. That's sort of a fake or for a bad reason for trying to stop something that you don't want to happen. So I think the files should be released, let the light of day, let the sun shine through. And that's the best way to get past it. Otherwise, if anybody thinks that this is going to go away because the House left a day early or something, it's got to be like those zombies in The Walking Dead. Every time you think you've killed it, another one's just going to come running out of the closet after you. This is going to be an issue all the way through next year's election.
Yeah, he's right. I don't know if you listened to Ezra Klein's podcast about this, where he talked about the nature of these conspiracy theories and the fact that even if there's nothing for Trump to worry about in these files, even if it turns out that they got into office and realized, oh, this specter of the Epstein files that we've been goosing our base with all along, there's actually nothing there, which, is not what I think happened, but let's say it did. They're in real trouble because now you've burst the bubble on the conspiracy. The thing that all these people in your base voted for you, not all, but a good chunk of your base was like leaning into these conspiracies going all the way back to QAnon. And then it turns out you're the one telling them there is no conspiracy. Well, that energy has to go somewhere, and they're going to turn that energy on you. So even in his best case scenario, which is, I think, an unlikely scenario, that he's just trying to do good governing and not releasing this because there's nothing there, it turns out, it hurts him badly.
Yeah, well, actually, speaking of Ezra Klein, I was at a bookstore the other day. He lives down the street from me. I don't know him, but I was at a bookstore and a child grabbed my hand. I was like, uh-oh, this is no good.
Yeah.
I looked around and I was like, what? And then it was Ezra Klein ushers the child away. It was his son, grabbed my hand thinking
so
I
funny.
must have been Ezra Klein because he was signing books at the bookstore. I was like, oh,
That's
God.
funny.
But yeah, it was like one of those jarring moments. I'm like both a kid, and then I'm looking over and here's this guy I recognize. It was weird. Republican Jason Smith, who's the chair of the Ways and Means Committee, was asked if they would use their subpoena power to get to the bottom of this. And here's what he had to say.
Subpoena point. Would you ever use subpoena power to try to find out more information about Jeffrey Epstein?
Well, you may use subpoena powers at any point. That is not a common thing that I have utilized within the Ways and Means Committee. But if I felt like that it was a priority for Americans, then of course. But like I said, this has not been something that's been a driving force. What people's cared about is the cost to put food on their table or the cost to put clothes on their backs. That's the focus they've had, or whether increase wages. And that is what our focus has been on the Ways and Means Committee. That's why we passed the one big beautiful bill, did no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, tax relief for seniors, an increased child tax credit, increased standard deduction. We did all this for the American people because that's what we're hearing about.
But you did use subpoena power with Hunter Biden.
Exactly. We have the authority to use it, but that is the only time that I have used it. Like I said, our focus has been delivering relief for working families, small businesses, and farmers. That should be the priority. Epstein is not the priority of everyday American who's working 9 to 5, just trying to put food on their table, clothes on their backs, and gasoline in their cars. That is not their focus.
All right, fair enough. And of course, I do take your point. Massive piece of legislation, Donald Trump's agenda did get through your committee, through the House of Representatives. As
I don't think he deserved a fair enough on that one.
No, not at all. Let me tell a quick Jason. Well, first of all, one, the idea that Epstein is not what the American people are concerned about that's what you could say fair point to. Like, yes, that is true. But two, the hypocrisy of acting like, but they did care about Hunter Biden. Let me offer a quick Jason Smith backgrounder and story for you. Jason Smith represents Southeast Missouri, which is basically northeastern Arkansas. And you know, when you listen and look at Jason Smith, and if you get to know the guy, you're like, how does this dude represent SEMO, Southeast Missouri? It doesn't fully fit that part of the state in terms of like his demeanor and that sort of thing. And frankly, even like his lack of a particular accent, that kind of thing. Jason Smith won that race. So Joanne Emerson left that seat. Jason Smith had to win over the committee people, and that's how he got the seat in the first place. And he's just been able to keep from having any primaries by always doing, you know, the right-wing stuff. And before that, when he was in the state legislature, he was doing exactly what he does now, which is, what does the boss want? I'll do what the boss wants. And so my quick Jason Smith story is, I had not been in the legislature very long. It was my first session, and the Republicans, or the governor, had vetoed a bill that was, the governor was a Democrat, and the governor had vetoed a bill that was basically just redundant, and it was a bill to try and make the governor look bad. They put a bunch of stuff in the law that was already like in the bill that was already in the law, and then the governor vetoed it because it was like, this conflicts with the law, but it's also the same as the law. It's confusing. And the governor was a lawyer, and he had been the attorney general, and he was like, this makes for bad code, and it doesn't really change the law, so he vetoed it. Well, they wanted to make it seem like he was, you know, down on the job, and he wasn't really doing the things that this bill, which was about fiscal responsibility, would do. And so the governor had asked me, he said, look, Smith is the sponsor of this thing, and he's going to bring it up to override my veto at the veto session. And he's just doing it because his Republican bosses told him to. I don't think he knows what he's doing, even with his own bill. And so I was like, got it. He said, you know, can you do something about it? So I went up and I acted like I was friendly to his cause. And I acted like I was turning on the governor of my own party. And I just asked him a bunch of questions. I was like, I'm going to read you some parts of your bill, and you explain to me why those parts are not in current law and the governor's wrong. And he's like, absolutely. So I do that. And I do it for like 5 minutes. And I just get him. He's like, yeah, that part you just read, that's super important. And that's totally different than current law. And he would tell me why. And the end of it, I was like, okay, everything I just read you is from current law. None of that is your bill. And even though they had a majority, it actually got voted down and he lost. So anyway, Jason Smith, they're not sending their best. Okay. Like, he's a nice guy. I mean, I get, well, you know what? No, he's not. I mean, he does some terrible things. But you know, you can hold a conversation with him. But I say all this to say, we said a minute ago that there are some Republicans that want to move on. And I want to be clear. It appears that the Republicans that want to move on are Republican elected officials who are the lapdog ones, right?
Right.
Any of the ones who think for themselves even remotely are not like standing up on principle, but they're smart enough to be more afraid of their base than they are of a president that seems to be cascading downward with the base. And Jason Smith just isn't quite that politically savvy.
Yeah, we knew that there's going to be some circling the wagons for Trump. The question is, the Andrew Schultzes, the Rogans, even like the Marjorie Taylor Greens, like I saw something from her. Again, she's like reluctant to name Trump by name, but being, you know, like we can't be duped to this kind of stuff. So we'll keep an eye on it. You know, obviously we try not to get too bullish on the right turning on their own guy, but
I'm not bullish, but I want to say this is the first time I've thought that there could be long-lasting damage to the base. And the reason is because this is a conspiracy theory. And at the end of the day, the real Trump base is activated by conspiracy theories. And if Trump is in the position of having to, at best, tell them there's no conspiracy, and at worst, appear to be a participant in that conspiracy, then he's undoing a lot of goodwill, and they're going to move on from him. He's created a monster, and they will move on from him.
Yeah, it's interesting, this Wall Street Journal article coming out about the doodle and the letter. Vance, attacked it, saying this was clearly false, and it kind of gives them a frame, which is fake news, right, to try to rally their people. Now, the challenge is stuff keeps coming out, new photos, new videos, these letters. Some of them are easier to convince people of than others. But one thing I know about the Wall Street Journal news reporting side of things, which happens to be my favorite news, I'm not talking about the opinion side, but the news side happens to be my favorite newsroom in the country for print. They're not putting this thing in there, especially with Murdoch at the top, unless they're sure of it. How could they be sure of it? Well, we might find out now through this, if Trump is really serious about a lawsuit, or
Discovery.
That's
so funny.
It has to be something fairly open and shut that made them certain that this was Trump who wrote this letter. And I'm curious to see what comes out there. Now,
by the way, let's not forget to mention that Dick Durbin is now saying that 1,000 FBI agents were tasked with looking at like 100,000 different files or transcripts or whatever to try and identify any mentions of Trump in, like, they were given the order to look for any mentions of Trump in the Epstein files previous to the DOJ being like, never mind, no files, nothing here.
So I'm sure something.
That's just a coincidence.
Yeah, so they found something. It's interesting. That's how the government works. Again, this is the biggest mark against true conspiracy theories is that they had to find, there's not one file. I guess there's probably documents all over the server.
Yeah,
that have to be looked through.
Look, let's do the tinfoil hat thing for a minute, right? The two people running point on obfuscating this on Trump's behalf are Pam Bondi, to whom the FBI reports, and Kash Patel, who were previously the two, who runs the FBI, who were previously the two leaders, along with a few others, of the whole, we got to find out about the Epstein files. Wait till you hear about the Epstein files. The FBI is the one that can give them to you. Bondi becomes AG. Kash Patel becomes head of the FBI. And then the FBI we've now heard, given an order to sift through and find any mentions of Trump. And then those two people subsequent to that say, oh, it turns out there's nothing here. That's interesting, I think. I mean, if you're going to do the conspiracy thing, that's a straighter line than usual.
Yeah, there's also, I would say, an ancillary but very important concern that I have, which is who's investigating crimes in this country now? Because I feel like you've got, we hear all these stories about Kash Patel dragging people in to get lie detector tests to say whether they make fun of him or not, right? Which is almost like straight out of The Office. It's like Office.
That is 100%. If Michael Scott were head of the FBI, that would happen. Anyway, go ahead.
So we've got that going on, which, needless to say, could be distracting to the rank and file.
Mm-hmm.
You got people just leaving probably because they're fed up with this. We probably have fewer agents anyway. We have a stooge running it, so it's not like he and Bongino are probably finger on the pulse of where the crime is going.
Well, I didn't even follow it. Is Bongino gone back to work? I don't even remember.
No, he has. I think I think he's. I mean, so who knows? But that he's reportedly still there. And who's investigating the crimes exactly in this country? I have major questions here. It reminds me of when J. Edgar Hoover was in charge of the FBI, and he was so obsessed with the decades-long search for communists in Hollywood and everything that what he missed for so long was the rise of organized crime and the Cosa Nostra. And up until he had to be forced essentially to investigate the mafia, which by that point had choked off huge parts of American industry and was, apparently larger than U.S. Steel at the time. But he didn't see that because he was so focused on the Red Scare decades after World War II was over. And they're going after actors, actresses, and intellectuals, et cetera. So that's kind of where we are now. Now, what the equivalent of mafia is today, anybody could guess. But I'm concerned. But anyway, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about Trump's attempt to try to distract from Epstein and how it's landed at President Obama's doorstep. We'll also talk about some, further scary stuff happening at FEMA, and then talk about tariffs. We'll be back. It feels like breaking the rules, but it's totally legal, and it's better for you than that third cocktail. You work hard, maybe you deal with life sometimes, but do you deserve an escape? Absolutely. That's where IndaCloud comes in. Gummies, flour, pre-rolls, all federally legal, seriously fun, and just a few clicks away. Whether you're chasing better sleep, deeper intimacy, or just solid daytime relief, this is grown-up cloud chasing done right. So if you're 21 or older, head to indacloud.co and use the code majority to get 25% off your first order plus free shipping. That's indacloud.co, code majority, 25% off, free shipping. You know what to do. IndaCloud is by far the most fun sponsor we've had the pleasure of working with. I tried their gummies the other night watching that new Billy Joel documentary that just came out, and I just vibed out. It also, like, when I take these things, I sleep better than I normally do. And the cool thing is there's no hangover, no sketchy ingredients, just good energy and a solid buzz. I love the Bliss sleep gummies, and they're fast shipping, made for an overall excellent experience. Over 50,000 people are already using IndaCloud because feeling good should feel this easy. If you're 21 or older, now's your chance to float above the stress, because IndaCloud is giving all new customers 25% off their first order plus free shipping. Just use the code majority or click the link in the show notes to claim your discount. That's indacloud.co, indacloud.co. Use the code majority for free shipping plus 25% off your first order. Order now. Fill out their quick survey to support the show, and enjoy the best part of your week, brought to you by IndaCloud. I love trying new and adventurous meals. Cook Unity was made for adventurous eaters with countless global cuisines from 160 plus award-winning chefs. Explore an ever-expanding menu of small batch meals, all tailored to your lifestyle, dietary needs, and cravings. Get ready to eat meals delivered directly to your door by going to cookunity.com/majority54 free, or enter the code majority54 free before checkout for free premium meals for life. I recently tried the Indian butter shrimp curry from Cook Unity, and it was absolutely incredible. I love Cook Unity, and I love that the meals are made and humanely raised meat is used and organic ingredients whenever possible. And so it's so much easier to both achieve your health goals and get nutritious, ready to eat meals that are often ethically and sustainably made by top chefs. And Cook Unity has an incredible roster of all-star chefs, which includes the Food Network alums, James Beard award winners, and acclaimed restaurateurs. They balance bold flavors and nutrition in their handcraft meals, which are freshly prepared, delivered to your door, and never frozen. With 300 plus weekly menu options, Cook Unity's customizable platform makes it simple to get connected with your cravings. And they cook quality meals that take much less time than you would have to do on your own. And it doesn't have to be on your time, right? Like you're getting things that are just much quicker to make. There's no cleanup or meal planning. Meals are delivered freshly cooked, fully cooked, and heat in less than 5 minutes in an oven or a microwave. So enjoy high quality culinary masterpieces for a fraction of restaurant and takeout prices. Subscriptions start as low as $11 per meal. You could skip deliveries, pause, or cancel anytime. Get what you're craving. Try the freshest, best tasting meal delivery made by your favorite celebrity chefs. Go to cookunity.com/majority54 free. That's cookunity.com/majority54 free, or enter the code majority54 free before checkout for free premium meals for life. That's free premium meals for life by using the code majority54 free or going to cookunity.com/majority54 free. Terms and conditions apply. Go to cookunity.com for details.
Ravi, before we go into this next thing, I just saw the New York Times is reporting that a federal judge in Florida has blocked the release of the Epstein grand jury transcript. So let's see. The quick denial blocked efforts by the Trump administration of blunt criticism of its handling of files related to Epstein. So It's interesting to see. So if you're Trump, do you try and pivot that to, hey, look, I tried to give you more information, but they don't want it? I mean, that's what you have to try to do, right?
Yeah, but in this article, it says she ordered that a new case be created in the public interest that provided access to the government's request and the denial order, as the Epstein grand jury docket is still sealed, but she ordered close the case where the government filed its request. I don't understand any of that, but it seems like there is an avenue if the Trump administration is highly motivated to do anything here. But this does give them a talking point without a doubt. Now the question is, will people then be, well, just release what you have in files, which is different than grand jury testimony? That would be the consistent thing to do, but
he will try to use this to confuse the issue. Like, it's not a real pivot. Like, he can't really spin it, but this is useful to the Mike Johnsons, et cetera, of the world, who want to appear to be aligned with the base, but also don't want to upset the president. They can just say, well, it's like last week when Johnson was like, well, California hasn't sent us their disaster request. Well, actually, I thought the White House hasn't sent you California's. Well, either way, you got to follow the law. It's like,
Yeah, but this one is Florida. And in light of what the Supreme Court had recently said about federal district court judges not issuing blanket injunctions, I was under the understanding that there was a separate New York case to unseal grand jury testimony in front of the judges that handled what I think was a case that originated up here in 2019. So who knows? I mean, this is breaking news, so we don't really know, but we'll keep an eye on that. But, talking about spinning this, Trump is trying to push the focus on former President Obama. Let's go to this clip.
Out of respect for the office of the presidency, our office does not normally dignify the constant nonsense and misinformation flowing out of this White House with the response. But these claims are...
We're doing a real job, but what we found out is horrible, that Obama and a group of thugs cheated on the elections. They cheated violently, viciously on the elections. They're violent people. They're vicious, horrible. These are vicious, horrible people. And we can't let this happen.
If true, Ravi. I mean, that's it's a big deal.
So yeah, we're beginning to play Obama's response. So that was Trump going after Obama. He also tweeted a video of Obama getting arrested, an AI generated video over the weekend.
That was
all of these
wild, by the way.
All these things would be like, I mean, I'm so tired of saying this, like the worst thing any president had done, like the biggest scandal, but it's just, we're so used to this. So, okay, we started to play this other part of the clip, but here's Obama's response.
Out of respect for the office of the presidency, our office does not normally dignify the constant nonsense and misinformation flowing out of this White House with a response, but these claims are outrageous enough to merit one. These bizarre allegations are ridiculous and a weak attempt at distraction. And the spokesman for President Obama goes on to say this: nothing in the document issued last week undercuts the widely accepted conclusion that Russia worked to influence the 2016 presidential election, but did not successfully manipulate any votes. These findings were affirmed in a 2020 report by the bipartisan Senate Intelligence Committee led by then Chairman Marco Rubio, who is, of course, now President Trump's Secretary of State.
So he's talking about this Senate Intelligence Committee report that Rubio put out that said there was unprecedented aggressive interference by Russia. Putin personally approved it. There was hacking of state election systems, and there was covert online influence operations. That was all coming from a Republican-led Senate committee. But you don't even have to take their word for it. Here's Trump in 2018.
Let me be totally clear in saying that, and I've said this many times, I accept our intelligence community's conclusion that Russia's meddling in the 2016 election took place. Could be other people also. There's a lot of people out there.
There's a lot of people out there. But this all emanates from some report that Tulsi Gabbard put out that, we don't have to justify too much of it. Basically insinuates that Obama cooked up this Russia stuff to steal an election, by the way, that Trump won. I don't even understand what the story here is. But
and that Obama wasn't on the ballot for.
Right.
I guess Hillary was, but still.
So he failed in his attempt to steal an election for Trump. by pushing a conspiracy that Russia interfered in the election, a conspiracy that Trump, when he took the presidency, reaffirmed, as did Rubio, his current Secretary of State, and the very director of national intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, in 2018, also seemed to believe. Let's go to this clip to her on Rogan.
I think when you're talking about, and there's so many, I don't know, I'm kind of going in a few different directions here with these social media giants, how they're being misused to further certain agendas in different ways. But when you're talking about like these Russian troll farms that you mentioned, what is missing from all of the news coverage around this and all of the outrage about how this foreign country is trying to influence our elections, which is wrong and which the American people need to be aware of where this information is coming from, is the fact that and you're saying, why does somebody do that? Well, because this country does want to influence who we're electing, right?
Yes.
Like, oh, we'd rather work with this person. We know that person's not going to be nice to us. The United States has been doing this for a very long time.
Sure.
In countries around the world, both overtly and covertly, through these kinds of disinformation campaigns, not even counting like the outright regime change wars, we're going to physically take you out. And I think it is very hypocritical for us to be discussing this issue as a country without actually being honest about how this goes both ways. So yes, we need to stop these other foreign countries, and Russia's not the only one, there are others, from trying to influence the American people in our elections. We also need to stop doing the same thing in other countries.
Yeah, without doubt. But there's also the question is, what is Russia trying to achieve? Like, why do they want someone like Donald Trump in office versus someone like Hillary Clinton? Like, what is to be gained? And how much, how much do they benefit from that?
Yeah.
This is what's really one of the big questions that's going on right now.
Yeah.
With all the Russian hearings and the Mueller investigation and trying to get to the bottom of all this and why they did what they did and what they did. And there's many people that are blowing this off and they don't think that it's important. And, the president's claiming it's a witch hunt. But it's very odd that we're having this conversation in the first place. It's never existed before in any single presidential election. There's never been talk of us or any politician that's running for president being influenced by a foreign superpower before today. It's just amazing that it took until 2016 before this became a real issue.
That's true.
So let me lay out a couple of things. Number one, Trump publicly called for Russia to release emails. So we don't need to send an intelligence committee report.
Russia, if you're listening.
Yeah. And the release of those emails was quite costly to Hillary Clinton. Did it cost her the election? We don't know, but it certainly was a major problem for her. So that's number one.
It cost her the election because it led to the Comey letter. It led to all that stuff. And so, yeah, I think so. But yes.
So we have that. We also now know what kind of president Trump has been, at least this term. He has been chaotic on Ukraine and only recently came around to some consistent support for them. He has both sides the conflict every step of the way. People don't need to be reminded of that awful Oval Office meeting with Zelensky, which he said they started the war. He said it multiple times that Ukraine started a war in which Ukraine was invaded by Russia. He has blown up NATO and attacked our own NATO allies. And started a trade war with some of those very same allies, while also either insinuating or taking steps to decrease economic sanctions on Russia. Only recently starting to flirt with ramping them back up. Now, there could be a less dramatic explanation of this, which is that Trump is just sympathetic to Putin because he views him as a fellow traveler of sorts, or that Trump is just naive and getting duped by Putin, or just he doesn't believe in the international order of NATO and democracies working together, et cetera. Any of those could be an explanation, and other than Trump being blackmailed by the Russians, right? But there needs to be some explanation for why this guy is so pro-Russia. And so I continue to hear these people being like, Russia hoax, Russia hoax. I'm like, no, It's as big of an issue today as it's ever been, and we have still not gotten a clear explanation as to why this guy is so pro-Russia.
You're right that they have worked very hard to try and just make it conventional wisdom that because he didn't end up getting, he got impeached, but because he didn't end up getting removed from office over it, they've really, I don't think history will remember it this way necessarily. I mean, it depends on who gets to write it, but recent history to the casual observer certainly looks like that was a nothing burger, that the Russia stuff amounted to nothing. And it is important to recognize that that was not the conclusion of literally everybody other than Trump. And in fact, at one point, it was also the conclusion of Trump, as we just pointed out.
Well, Trump has been busy trying to kick up dirt here. On Sunday alone, he posted 33 times on Truth Social. I don't think I've posted 33 times on Twitter this entire year. He sent off 20 posts between 6:46 and 8:53 p.m. Eastern. He included messages about the Washington Commanders and changing their name back to the Redskins, the Cleveland Guardians coming back to the Indians.
Between 6:46 and 8:40, so over the period of an hour and a half, which is like dinner slash, your president, you would imagine there's some work going on during that time, but at best it's dinner time.
Right.
And this dude is just sitting there composing. What is it? I mean, he's just doom scrolling, and I mean,
just random things. I mean, we talked on.
I don't care who you are. That's bad for your mental health. If my kid spent an hour and a half doom scrolling during those hours of the day, I would be like, True, you are not going to sleep well. This is not like, anyway. I just wanted to pause for a moment.
Yeah, pick any responsible member of your community too, and be like, if I saw that this person not only was doom scrolling for 2 hours, right? Which you'd be all right, like, that's like a conversation.
Also shit posting.
Just posting random shit that has nothing to do with their job, like the names of sports teams. He posted an AI generated video. That's when he posted the Obama video getting arrested. That was, by the way, set to the Village People soundtrack. But he also posted an apolitical content, like something about a woman catching a cobra with her bare hands. This does not seem like a focused person, Jason.
No, it does not. This seems like, not trying to play armchair psychologist here, but this seems like a person who is deeply entrenched in an avoidance practice because something is going on in their life that is causing such a high level of anxiety that they need to dive into the tunnel that is their phone and avoid what's going on out here in the rest of the world.
Well, one thing I would love for him to spend just a fraction of that time on is our disaster preparedness. We're heading into hurricane season here, and the head of FEMA's Urban Search and Rescue Unit has resigned, telling colleagues that he was frustrated by the bureaucratic hurdles that the Trump administration imposed to delay the agency's response to the flooding in Texas. This is from reporting in the New York Times. This gentleman, Ken Pagarek, had worked with FEMA Search and Rescue Branch for more than a decade and served as the chief for the past year. He was particularly worried about this rule where purchases of $100,000 or more be personally approved by Christine Nome. And I think reading between the tea leaves here, she's not it's not that it's like a fiscal thing. She's just a combination of lazy and focused on her influencer career. So these things aren't getting approved. And it led to things like, according to this reporting, people not picking up the phone in the call centers or not getting hired to staff those call centers. Also concerning, Jason, is that FEMA has lost about a quarter of its full-time staff since Trump took office. That includes 20% of the coordinating officers at the agency who manage responses to major disasters. Seems important.
Yeah, the Doge stuff continues to not age well. And particularly the fact that like Musk came in, brought his goons, decimated a bunch of crap, and then like tried to do the hero move where he doesn't look and turn around and look at the explosion as he walks away. Like he's just gone back to doing his Elon Musk thing. And meanwhile, there's children dying at a summer camp in Texas, and you can't get anybody on the phone for emergency response. And I just wonder, like, does he realize that that's probably part of why, or does he care? Or do any of these people care? It's a very, this show is about the arguments you can make to the people in your lives. And I think this is a strong one, is that like you can apply your ideology all you want, and you can have the luxury of theories, but when the rubber hits the road, there is some stuff government has to do. And there will always be some stuff government has to do, because there will always be things for which they are market failures. There are always going to be things through which you cannot make money doing them. And that's why you have government. We have the government pave the roads because you can't make money paving the roads. We have the government do disaster response because you can't make money doing disaster response unless you're going to do a horrible job at disaster response and overcharge everyone for it, right? And make it terribly inefficient. So that's why the government does it. So when you put people in charge who think that it doesn't matter what the government does, then the stuff that government does will be done very poorly and people will be hurt or killed.
Well, I think we played this clip last week when Christine Noem went on the morning shows. She was like, fake news, this or that, like this is like standard response, yada, yada, yada. Now, one thing they all don't mention is that Trump and his administration have said they want to get rid of FEMA altogether. Yeah. So somehow we're supposed to believe that this is a normal course of action, but that they want to get rid of FEMA and they want to
have the states do it.
They want to have states do it, which, you know, I'm not like a socialist, but I do think like one of the things our federal government should be doing is ensuring that in the event of natural disasters, we all come together and help that state, whether it's North Carolina, Alabama, Mississippi, or California. I think that's one of the things that I hope, no matter how bad our politics get, that we all realize that, hey, sometimes one state gets hit really hard and we all come to their aid. Like that's how we do things around here.
It's kind of one of the points, right? It's kind of one of the points of like having a federal government, having a United States. Yeah, absolutely. And by the way, like the whole idea of we're going to have the states handle all emergency response is a convenient way of being like, we're not really going to do emergency response because most of the states have balanced budget requirements. They can't, the states can't just spend off book dollars. Something like that comes up, they can't do it. It's why when a state has an emergency like that, the first thing they do is turn around and call the federal government because they don't have some huge stash of dollars sitting around to use for that sort of thing. Because if they did, it would violate their state constitution.
Yeah, and remember what they just did. They just passed this budget that makes ICE like larger than all these federal agencies combined. So that's a reflection of their values. Well, let's talk about tariffs really quickly here. Trump finally announced a deal. You know, remember he's got to cut a deal with basically every country in the world, and we finally got one with Japan, we think. Now, this deal has a baseline tariff of 15% of what they call reciprocal tariffs, which aren't really reciprocal. And they're hailing this as a win. And I'm like, if before this election, you're like, okay, we're going to increase, and you got to imagine this is the blueprint, right? 15 is what most countries can hope for. If you before the election, you're like 15% tariffs, like mind you, this translates to increased prices almost certainly. Although our Treasury Secretary seems to disagree. Let's go to this clip.
I do know that the tariffs, the cost of tariffs on automobiles, which will begin, I don't know, August 1st or whatever, will be paid by people like me, the consumer. The question is, does the president realize the consumer pays the tariffs?
Well, I'm going to have to disagree with that. Who pays the tariffs is a choice. And what we've seen thus far is that the manufacturers are eating a substantial portion of the tariffs and taking it into their profit margins. So you might see, for instance, Toyota hasn't raised prices, and they may choose to go for market share rather than raising prices.
Are you, it's been...
So this is a bit of sophistry, Jason, because a lot of these tariffs haven't taken into effect yet. So they take into effect in August. We're going to be able to see it. This is a testable presumption, right? And Bessent has repeatedly said things, predicted things that don't happen. One example is, people can go to the page of The Economist this morning. They had a piece about how Bessent said that the dollar would strengthen in response to these tariffs. And actually it has been weakened to the tune of about 10%, which has all kinds of problems. If you buy any goods that were manufactured outside of the United States, that effectively means you're paying 10% more for that. And the article is kind of scary as to why the dollar is weakening, but we don't need to go into that here. But this is a guy who's throwing out a testable presumption.
Yeah. Also, let's walk through this presumption for a moment, right? There are short-term scenarios in which it is possible that he's right, I suppose, right? Where, like Toyota, for example, the example that he used there, like where Toyota says, well, in the short term, we don't want to sacrifice market share. So we're going to eat the cost. We're going to eat into our profits. That is possible. Over the long term, it's highly unlikely that Toyota would be able to sustain that. But really, what's so messed up about that is it is what a con. I mean, it is just saying like, okay, look, if prices go up, that's not our fault. That's a choice that these companies made. Well, okay, it's a choice these companies made when responding to predictable, like market pressures that where they chose the most predictable response. But that's like the classic sort of Trump administration logic, which is, hey, we set the field on fire. Whether the house that's next to the field gets burned down has nothing to do with us. You know, I mean, that's how they approach things. But all right, we are joined right now, I believe, by Congressman Derek Tran of California's 45th district. Let's see if do we have him. Yeah, hey, how you doing, Congressman?
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, good to have you here. I'm going to introduce you real quick. Congressman Tran is in his first term representing California's 45th district. He is the child of Vietnamese refugees. He's also a veteran of the United States Army, a trial lawyer, and a small business owner. I am going to bring you in with a quick funny story that I wonder if you remember. You're laughing, so I think maybe you do. Your comms people reached out and were like, hey, would you have him on the show? And so our producers were like, I don't remember how it happened. We're like, sure. And I remembered that you and I have talked before. You made a lot of fundraising calls during the campaign, so I would not expect you to remember this perfectly, but I will try and remember it my best, and then you fill in any spots. And I think you come off well in this because you come off as a person who's certainly not a lifelong politician, which I think is a compliment. I think I had a voicemail from you or something, and I returned your call at some point, early in your campaign, and it was a call where you kind of told me a little bit about you, and then asked for money, and it was a short call. And then I think I called you back later and I was like, hey, let's talk about I think I just said, I will give you money if I can bend your ear about your fundraising strategy for a few minutes. Am I remembering this right?
Yeah, 100%. I think you were gracious enough to pull me aside and tell me, hey, you're doing this all wrong. So I appreciate that, Jason, very much.
Well, it speaks well of you because I'm not like saying you weren't good at congressing. You were like a normal human being who had not divorced yourself from the sort of civil human function of like you weren't a maniac fundraiser like I once was. And I just remember enjoying that you humored me while I gave you sort of my 3-part or my like one-man play on how to do a fundraising call. So anyway, now you're in Congress. How's it going?
It's tough. I kind of wish you didn't give me those tips to fundraise better to get elected, right? Man, I can't tell you a harder job that I've ever had. And I went through boot camp, and we shared this our stories of us both serving, and I was a practicing attorney. This job is freaking hard.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk. We were talking earlier. I didn't want to just jump right into the Epstein stuff, but I think we're going to just for a second because it came up earlier. Ravi and I were talking about what our best guesses were, and we figured we'd just ask you as to what the Republicans in the House are thinking right now in terms of they're doing things like shutting down debate in order to avoid talking about Epstein, but it's not going to go away. So they're having to balance right now. Like we're afraid of the base, but we're also still sufficiently afraid of Trump. What are you hearing from them, and what do you think is going to happen there?
Look, I think they're pretty scared of what's happening with those files and the demand from the public to release them. I truly believe that if they think that if they wait long enough, that this is all going to go away. And I don't see it losing any momentum or steam anywhere on any of the social media platforms. So, what Speaker Johnson's doing and his whole leadership team, it's not working. So we're going to continue to press for them to release these files, and I think that's what the public wants.
Yeah.
I have a question about, like, Speaker Johnson just seems totally uninterested in, like, any sense of decorum, collaboration. Like, he just wants to steamroll Democrats and be as partisan, like, even for a body that is, you know, over the past, 20 years has gotten more and more partisan, like unprecedentedly partisan and unprincipled. Like, is there not a sense that this has a good chance of flipping back to Democrats in a year, and that like we could stick them in the basement? Like what is like I just feel like they're operating under this assumption that, hey, like, Democrats will just bring it back to the normal way of doing things with the normal sense of decorum, and we can get away with being total assholes.
Yeah. So, Ravi, what I learned from Jason is that you can't ask me a question unless you donate to me.
There you go. There you go.
Learning, right?
Love that.
Totally joking. Look, I think what they're setting themselves up for is complete failure. I think you see it by the way that they're trying to redistrict the Texas maps so they can pick up some seats. They're running scared. I mean, they are literally running scared. California is going to do what we need to do.
Do you support the effort, like the reciprocal, to use Trump's term, a reciprocal move for California to redistrict off cycle if Texas does so?
Look, I think this is what the people of my district, our base, is asking for, right? They're like, we want you to fight, and they're fighting dirty. So what do we need to do? We need to match them. We need to do everything within our power to make sure we win back the House, because look at how chaotic it is now. Look at the fact that they're cutting healthcare for 17 million Americans. I mean, this is just insane. The rescissions that's happening right now, Congress's power to purse has been stripped away by the Republicans, just giving Trump more power, congressional power. I'm 6 months in, and I know that this is not normal and should not be normal.
Yeah, one of the things I've been thinking about this redistricting thing, like the reciprocal action thing, and the institutionalist in me is like, oh, well, I hate that it's going to go that way. The realist in me is like, hey, you know what? This is about power and people who exercise power. And then the optimist in me wants to say, like, well, maybe if everyone engages in this for a while, since it's clearly not going away, then maybe that gets us to a point where after, a few cycles of this, you have more and more states just say, screw it, and go to independent redistrict. Maybe it has to get a lot worse before it gets better.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think we need some type of national law that just says every state has to go to some type of independent redistricting.
The John Lewis Voting Rights Act.
There you go. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. First act of Congress that we're going to take up once Democrats are in control is going to be that bill, and we're proud of it. But right now, as it stands, the way that the Republicans are governing, the way that they're cheating the system, because that's what it is. They're gaming and cheating the system. We just have to be prepared, and we just can't be that, we're Democrats. We believe in being respectful and cordial and following the rules. F that. It's time that we fight back, and we got to do what we need to do to win, period.
You'd think that mathematically, given the fact that I would imagine Democrats have more big states, right? So and the bigger the state, the more you can gain from mathematical, precise, computer-generated redistricting, right? There are only so many Texases and Floridas for the Republicans. We've got New York, we've got California, we've got Maryland, which has said that it's going to jump into the fray. You can go down the list. I mean, we've got a lot of big states. It's why we have problems in the Senate, because we have all these huge population centers, but Wyoming gets 2 senators, So I imagine we could probably win in this fight if they really push us over the brink here.
Well, that's where we're headed. So, they want us to fight. We're fighting, and that's coming from the base. So I say this with full support. I think we're going to do what we need to do to make sure we hold the Republicans accountable, and that the Democrats are going to get back the power and control the House in 2026.
What has been? I'm going to ask a more broad question. it probably won't be that hard for you to summon an answer to the first part of this question, which is what has been the most like disappointing or so, whatever, soul crushing, however you choose your own adventure there, part of the last 6 months for you in this new job. And I purposefully put this second. Also, what has been the moment or the development or the piece of information you've learned that has given you the most hope as well?
Yeah, I think, how polarized and divided we are it has been such a it's tough to be in this type of environment every single freaking day. So I would say,
like, have you gotten to know any Republican members?
100%. And they're all seem so normal until it's time for them to vote. And then you're like, what the heck,
Yeah.
They say all the right stuff. I mean, they even say it to their constituents, like, we're not going to cut Medicaid. We're not going to do this. We're going to protect you. And then they vote the Trump way. And unfortunately, I've lost hope in them. But in terms of finding hope for myself here, I look at where we are now and how dangerous of a situation this country is in, and that this is an opportunity for me to really show my kids, and I have 3 young kids, a 9, 7, and 2-year-old, that all this time that I'm away from them, it's because their dad is fighting the good fight so that they have a future, so that there is still a democracy, so that they have clean air to breathe, so that my daughter can make decisions about her own body. That is my hope, and that's what gives me and sustains me.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. It's good to see you in Congress. I cannot say that I have anything to do with it, but I did enjoy you humoring me in exchange for, I think, like a couple $100 that I donated. I'm glad to see you're there.
No, this was a lot of fun, guys. Thank you so much, and I'll be hitting you both up for some money soon.
All right, cool. Thanks, man. See you soon. Yeah, it was funny, man. I didn't want to waste his time in the interview talking about it, Ravi, but it was like he called and he was like, he was clearly doing a lot of calls, and he was like, just kind of had a script. And I called and I was like, hey, look, man, I'm not trying to be the guy that's like, I'm a big deal. You got to know who you're calling. I just called them and I said, you got to make sure, for you to effectively raise money, you got to make sure that the people doing the research for you are fully researching and giving you good call sheets. I said, because you gave me like a pretty generic script because that's what was put in front of you. But what you missed an opportunity to like say, hey, I'm a former trial lawyer and a veteran, and so are you. And then just guilt me into giving you money. I was like that. And I just remember I was like, so you got to force your people to give you full research so that you always seem like you know who you're calling. And then like we talked for like 30 minutes at like 11 p.m. at night on a night Diana was traveling or something. And then I was like, all right, I'll give you a couple $100. Thanks for listening to me. So
I mean, just a double whammy for the fundraiser. The fact that he gave you 30 minutes for a couple $100.
I know, right?
And that that I'm sure there was some tough feedback there for his fundraiser.
That I was like, make them work harder and do more. It's totally true.
What happened to your eye, by the way? I saw something on your eye.
I don't know. I don't think that I'm reaching the age where I just easily bruise. But I don't know, man. I have 2 rambunctious kids, and I spent this morning trying to figure out. I was thinking of the Musk thing when I was looking in the mirror and thinking, do I blame this on my kids? What happened here? But I promise I don't have like a ketamine addiction or any of that stuff that people talk about with Musk. And then he showed up. It's not for the audio audience. It's not a full black eye. I have like a blemish over my left eyelid, and I'm not sure what happened. So anyway, I don't know. I have a mystery injury. What's new with you?
Not a whole lot, man. Yeah, I've just been in New York. I'm not traveling. I don't have much like going on. I do highly recommend this Billy Joel documentary, which I alluded to in one of the
clips.
The part 1 came out on Friday. It was so fascinating. Especially, I imagine you're a Billy Joel fan.
Yeah.
I learned a lot. And his first wife, everybody thinks of Christy Brinkley, but he had a wife before that who was his manager, and she's total badass. Like
really?
the documentary spends a lot of time on her, and I didn't know any of that background story. I also didn't understand the full context of the piano bar experience that he had, where he created an alias so he could perform at a piano bar when he was in a fight with his record label, which is basically his record label's essentially stealing from him. Like had like a he had a terrible deal. So he, in order to hold out and make enough money to live off of, he performed at a piano bar in California under an alias, and that's where that song came from.
That's so cool.
But
Where's
like
the
that.
show? Where is it?
It's on HBO.
Okay, yeah,
Very good, very, very good.
that's awesome. Well, it's just been super hot here. That's pretty much what's going on. It's just like that kind of year where it's crazy hot. And it's funny because we are starting the fall baseball season, and it always cracks me up that the fall baseball season is when it really starts to get hot here. And so that's where we are, man. We're just right here in the in the middle of the Kansas City heat. So well, this was fun. You know, what's been interesting lately is we have been getting the chance to, usually we just have on politicians who you and I have personal relationships with. Lately, we've been saying yes to more pitches from politicians. And that's been kind of fun because we're getting to like meet new people and introduce new people to the audience. And I don't remember what the date is, but we have this guy coming on in the next couple of weeks, I think, James Tallarico.
Oh,
right?
yeah. Well, I'm not worried about him, but I do think I was thinking about, we had a politician on a little while ago, and I won't say which one, but I got some I never hear from the audience on a lot of these people, but I heard from the audience that this guy didn't say a whole lot. And that's always what we're worried about with some politicians. And including my own mother was like, what was that guy saying? And so I'm like, okay, that's a problem. So I was thinking we should crowdsource a set of flight instructions for politicians when they come on Majority 54. We should do that on Twitter or somewhere and be like, hey, audience, tell us what you want us to say to politicians before they come on. Because I think what you'll say versions of like abandon the talking points. We don't need the politics is personal for me type of stuff. Like we all heard that, like say something interesting and real. I thought Senator King was a great example of this, where he was talking about just like what it's like to, you know, the texture of life in Congress, you know, like, or what we were just talking about with redistricting in California. That's
Tran just now, like, people should know these, when we get pitches from politicians to come on, you know, look, when we have our friends on, we just text them directly and they come on the show and it's whatever. But when we are having people on where it was set up by their comms team, they are reaching out over the course of the week. You may not even know this, Ravi, because Maddie, my assistant, schedules them. They are reaching out to Maddie for like 2 weeks beforehand, trying to get what will the topics be? What will the questions be? And they're like sending articles like, he'd love to talk about this. And I just have Maddie always say, you know, well, they're pretty much going to talk about news of the day. Like, and poor Maddie is in this situation of like just having to dissatisfy, you know, just like give what is considered by the comms team an inadequate answer over and over again. But so, yeah, I think it would be great to be able to give people sort of a how to Majority 54. I would encourage people to, you can do it on social, but also if you want it, wherever you know, like if you listen to this, you know, on an audio app, if you'll go into the comments and say, here's what you should tell politicians before they come on, because you do have to be a pretty good sport about it, because you really don't know what we're going to ask. You don't do a pre-interview of any kind.
It's just, to me, it's a mark of whether somebody understands, like respects any audience, and I'm especially interested in ours, and is willing to say something real. And also whether they understand the world we live in now, where that is actually a good idea no matter where you're going. Like,
right.
So yeah, it's a good test.
Yeah. Props to Congressman Tran, because his team, because they were like, what are you going to ask about? And I said, I'm going to tell a funny story about when he and I talked. And then we're just going to talk about news of the day. That's why I had Maddie tell me. And then they came back and they're like, what is the story? You know, and he still came on, you know, which is great. So, okay, cool. Well, thanks everybody for listening. Thank you to the Meidas Mighty. Again, our show, The Game Within, on the Valor Media Network, streams live 2:30 Central on Mondays. Drops on audio, usually actually Tuesday mornings. And it's really good. It's the intersection of sports and politics. And it's with our friend Adisu. And I think you'll like it if you're not already listening. Increasingly, more and more of you are, which I appreciate. And you can find Ravi at Ravi M. Gupta everywhere. You can find me at Jason Kander everywhere. Please leave a 5-star review and give us a comment on what we should put in the how-to guide for politicians. Remember, we all have a platform. Make sure to use yours today.